Has Donald Trump cheated the government out of taxes, or was he a shrewd businessman just using the system to his advantage legally? That's been the debate since late Saturday night when the New York Times released a story after receiving partial tax returns showing the Republican nominee reported more than $900 million in losses in 1995. Citing tax experts, the Times story said Trump could have used common and, again, legal tax practices to have his loss cancel out an equivalent amount of taxable income for nearly 2 decades. Bottom line, he might have erased all his federal tax obligations over that time period. The notion that Trump has been paying taxes came up in the first presidential debate last week when Hillary Clinton challenged him for not releasing his tax return, when that has been the common practice for presidential candidates for decades.
The only years that anybody's ever seen were a couple of years when he had to turn them over to state authorities when he was trying to get a casino license, and they showed he didn't pay any federal income tax.
The Trump campaign doubled down on that theme, sending out campaign surrogates to make the case Trump was just being a smart businessman.
The man's a genius. He knows how to operate the tax code for the benefit of the people he's serving.
Trump responded on Twitter saying, "I know the complex tax laws better than anyone who's ever run for president, and I'm the only one who can fix them." #failing New York Times. Democrats are hoping this is their October surprise and will convince working and middle-class voters Trump doesn't have their interests at heart. Joining me are Lila Alphonse, managing editor for the U.S. News and World Report. Good to see you, Lila. Dan Primack, senior editor at Fortune. Same to you, Dan. And Jennifer Braceras, editor of NewBostonPost.com. Hey, Jennifer. Starting with you, Lila. The vast majority of people have been saying in polls they wanted him to release his tax returns. Now that some are available, will it matter?
I don't think it will, actually.
It won't?
Well,
Why?
because he hasn't broken the law. The taxes, everything he did is completely legal. I don't know about you, but I do myself try to pay as little tax as I can. So I don't think that that's going to be a problem. What I think is more interesting is that in 2011, 2012, he said that the country is in such bad shape because we have high debt and 50% of Americans don't pay federal income tax, and now it turns out he's one of them.
You know, but how about he make the case, Jennifer, that he's fighting for whatever he calls the little guy, the working person? How do you make the case when that working person, that little guy, is paying taxes? And as Hillary Clinton said at the debate, so if he's paid zero, that means zero for troops, zero for vets, zero for schools, or health. How does he make that case?
The same way he's made it all along, which is that he doesn't need the job. Therefore, he's free to represent the people, right? Remember, I think it was Eric Trump who said at the convention, vote for the one person who doesn't need this job. I think that really resonated with a lot of people.
So you don't think it's going to hurt him either?
No, because we all know Donald Trump is rich, and we all know that rich people, you know, take losses and roll them over to the next year. This isn't a surprise. We also know, to her point, that Donald Trump is a hypocrite and contradicts himself from year to year. So none of this is new.
America loves good hypocrites. They do.
They do,
so
don't
do you want to break the...
Yeah, I'm not so sure, because there's a lot we don't know. In fact, most of what we don't know, you know, when you say it's legal, maybe. We don't know what...
We don't know that it's illegal.
We don't know either way. We don't have you know, people keep saying this is a loss carried over. We don't know what those years before. We don't know the years after. It might be completely legal. It might not be. And my guess is if there's some other leak, we'll find out.
Is he a genius?
His accountant might be a genius. I mean, I don't think he's the guy sitting there with the calculator doing his taxes. So I don't think it makes him personally necessarily a genius or a crook. His accountant's the person who's doing this.
Well, I mean, no rich guy's doing his own or her own taxes. They hire a good accountant who does what this guy did who retired to Florida.
His argument in the tweet was, look, I understand the tax code better than anybody. Look at my don't look at my tax returns, but I can fix it. He hasn't said anything about fixing some of the loopholes which he might have been using in this, specifically things that are for real estate developers.
I don't think he believes they should be fixed.
We don't know. I mean, we don't know.
Well, but his whole theory is, because he doesn't use these words, a master of tax avoidance, I know where all the loopholes are. The clear implication I've gotten, including from that tweet I read a minute ago, I will fix them because I know where they all are. You don't think that's at least the implication here?
I think the implication is whatever he wants to be at any given moment. I'm a genius, I'll fix it. I'm the only one who can fix it. I mean, it's...
You on board yet, or you're still not there?
No, I'm
I didn't
not
think so. Okay.
He did call himself the king of debt, and what this tax return really illustrates is that the super rich make their money in a very different way than your average American.
You know, I didn't think... you really screwed up my whole line of questioning here, because I assumed all three of you said we're going to say this is a real problem. Because the reason why I think you may be right, I'm just thinking recent history here. We all celebrated the coming of GE to Massachusetts, one of the great changes. who was the corporate master of tax avoidance for years, billions of dollars in profits, paying nothing to the federal government. And Jeff Immelt brings his company here and virtually not a peep.
One difference, though, is that the $1 billion are almost $900 million and change dollars of losses in a year where, if you looked at it when we had looked at it previously, 1995 should have been a really good year for Donald Trump. If you look at his general business, you'd think, oh, that was the good year. The idea that that was a disastrous year for him, his entire campaign is based on being a genius businessman. If that was one of his good years, that does cut into his argument for president.
Yes, I agree with that. So it is relevant insofar as his claim to be a brilliant businessman. And that's what will make it interesting when we see more documents. However, of all the negative things there are to say about Donald Trump, of all of the reasons why one might offer that he's not qualified to be president, this isn't one of them.
You know, I'm surprised that none of you also, well, actually, considering the business you're in, are you troubled? Dean Baquet, who's the boss at the New York Times, long before they got this, and we should make clear to people at home, they're saying they don't know who it's from. It said it had a return address. Right. There's some speculation it's Marla Maples. No one has any idea. They got it anonymously. He acknowledged months ago that if he were to get the tax returns, he would release them to the public, and he knew he'd be violating the law doing it, because unless you have the approval of one of the people on the return, you can't do it. Does it trouble any of you?
On federal returns.
Exactly.
And these are state returns.
That's right.
And there's a question about that, though, because the information in the state returns reflect what you gave in the federal. So to be honest, there might just be a legal question about that.
About whether or not it is legal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Does it trouble you if laws were violated? Does it trouble any of you that they were releasing them or no?
It depends on whether you consider the speculation about one of the people who co-signed it or who, well, yeah,
well,
co-signed it.
There's absolutely no confirmation. It's all speculation.
It's all
because you put out
speculation.
a tweet
I think right now it's just interesting, and he was willing to put himself on the line and face legal problems because of it. So
I wonder
if
they'd be willing to do that, though, if the candidate were a Democrat. I mean,
They have. With the hacked emails. They've published the stuff that was in the hacked emails, which comes clearly from a crime. Yeah, I'm troubled by all of it.
You're talking about the DNC
the DNC
stuff.
email.
Yeah.
Anything that was in the New York Times or the Boston Globe about that, that's all based on.
When you say there are other things,
I don't see them going after the Clinton Foundation tax documents the way they're going after this. I mean, just to be...
Jennifer Braceras,
wait, the Clinton Foundation tax documents are public. They're public. Anyone can have
you
them.
say there's more damaging things that should hurt him more than these the release, or not release, the leaking. Like what, for example? Well, actually, there are a couple of small things, but everything has been small of late in this campaign. Here is the latest comment on Hillary Clinton's health.
Here's a woman. She's supposed to fight all of these different things, and she can't make it 15 feet to her car.
And then he did a little motion of someone stumbling along. Is that one of the things, the constant low rent criticisms, that sort of thing, or
There's
bigger
so many
issues?
of them. I mean, from the time that he criticized John McCain when he said, I prefer, people who don't get captured.
Well, obviously that didn't hurt him at all,
No,
did it?
and neither will this. This is no different. When he made fun of the disabled reporter, when he...
From the New York Times,
There's
yeah.
so many low-rent things, as you say. The fact that he's up at 3 o'clock in the morning tweeting frantically and having to have the last word, I mean, that is not a mentally stable person.
Can we go to the other end of the spectrum? The only thing on the Clinton side of the ledger, the New York Times wrote a variation of what was in the Washington Post a week ago. I don't know if you remember here. You were here when we were having this discussion. You may have been. What level of concern with the public is there about this whole issue about what Hillary did? I mean, a lot of the press and a lot of his surrogates, I think, are doing a horrible job. It's not about infidelity. It's not about what he did. It's not about their marriage. I think, relevant issue.
If people cared about that, they wouldn't support him.
Well, exactly. The relevant, and that point has been made about
Right.
Giuliani too. The relevant issue, once again, is what did she do that may have been inappropriate vis-a-vis the women that her husband had a relationship with, whether it was consensual or otherwise. It's in the Sunday Times yesterday on the front page of the paper. Does it get totally buried beneath this tax onslaught? Does anybody even care about it now?
I think it got buried in part because people are less outraged over what a wife who's been wronged is doing to the other woman than they are about...
Should they be less concerned? Forget
they be?
standing by your man. That's not my view. It's not our business at all. It's her business. How about attacking, as they detailed today in the New York Times and the Washington Post the other day? Do people care about that or no?
I don't think people care about that as much. And I just think they don't care about it because there's so many, as you said, little things that are piling up.
I don't think they care as much as they do about Trump tax returns, because Trump tax returns are new. The Hillary stuff, it's being detailed more, but that's history that most people who were around in the 90s remember.
I think that this helps Hillary because Hillary's poll numbers always go up when she's shown to be a victim. I think what they should be going after is the Clinton Foundation stuff in her emails and combing through that and trying
that's my last thing. If I just can, it seems...
You didn't even mention that at the debate.
Starting on Birther Friday, The press has totally changed their cut. There's a piece in the New York Times yesterday, and I'm paraphrasing, where they talk about Trump being rattled at some performance. Rattled because of the leak of the tax returns, because he's rambled from point to point in every single thing.
Correct.
Have we not seen the press essentially say, we were too soft on this guy until Birther Friday, and now all of a sudden we got to go full bore? That's what's been happening the last few weeks, hasn't it?
I think the press was purposefully soft on him during the Republican primary because he was the candidate of choice of the liberal media.
Because they thought he was the easiest to beat.
Exactly.
What do you think about that quickly?
I think we covered it, and we were, I think, quote, the liberal press were a little bit stunned that he got the votes that he got. I mean, most of our critical coverage was of Trump during the primaries. He got the votes.
But it is in my estimation, it's almost like a totally different press come 2 Fridays ago.
I think during the primary season, the press was saying, yay, clicks, yay, page views, yay, viewers, yay, ratings. And now they're going, whoa, wait a second.
I think the
and they're
media has
being more
missed the
critical.
story completely, though, because even
What is
now,
it?
focusing on these tax returns, the tax returns isn't the story.
What is the story?
The story is why so many people why he's appealing to so many people. And the reason is he's been talking over the media's head the whole time. He's been talking directly to the people. Whether we understand it or not, the people are angry at the establishment. And unless we can understand that and harness that, politics are
Totally
forever
agree with
changed.
every word you just said. Good to see you, Lila.
Nice to see you, too.
Dan, pleasure.
see you.
Jennifer, thanks so
Nice to
much.
see you.
See you soon.